Now I'm not on mute. Hey, it's Logic Tottenham. Yeah,
Hey!
yeah, yeah, yeah. How about that? Technology is not our friend today, but we have a show. We have a great show because we are going to talk about a wonderful win at the Tottenham Hotspur Stadium against Aston Villa. And I know one of our panelists is exceedingly happy about that result. And it's a pleasure for me because I haven't been on a show with HG in gosh, quite a long time. It's been probably many, many weeks. So we've got a lot to talk about. It's a fun Monday when you have your team beating up on Villa on the weekend. So how's you doing, HG, over there in Vienna?
I'm doing all right, actually. Yeah, it's been a good few days. I've been away on holiday with the family, but got back today. And yeah, having Spurs win while I was away meant that we're in the tops made a lot more sense. I'm doing good.
Yeah, absolutely. And I know as I said, there's someone on this panel named Matt who is thrilled as he is surrounded by villains everywhere that he goes and family and friends. And so how do you feeling today?
Yeah, football is a friend of mine this week, mate. It's been a good week. Um, Glad to be on. Uh, I'm, if I keep disappearing from the screen, it's because I'm left home alone with a couple of things beyond my control tonight, like a 14-week old puppy and a
Ooh.
16-year-old son who will probably just keep walking through, forgetting I'm on here. So I'll try and be as professional as I can, but if I keep disappearing, I apologise. But really happy, mate. Always good to beat Villa again and score 4 goals again. So I'm
Again,
happy.
yeah. Well, yeah, it was certainly a game of two halves, HG. I mean, there's no question that first half was one that really kind of was mucked up a lot by a lot of Villa's typical. We're going to be very physical. We're going to be really we're going to take time. Emi Martinez is going to take 30 seconds for every goal kick. We're going to take 20 seconds for every throw in. We're going to try and slow this thing down on the road. We don't want Tottenham to get going. Do you think that for you the lineup that was chosen was the lineup that you would have expected from Ange yesterday? And is it different than the one that you would have started yourself?
I mean, I think it was. I mean, obviously with Van der Ven out, you knew that Dragusin was coming in. And outside of that, I think the midfield three, at least against better teams, it works well having Sarr in there. We know that it's going to be Bendika or Bissouma. I prefer Bendika anyway, so I was happy with that. So the 11, seeing Son back was maybe a surprise. I think a lot of people thought he wasn't going to start. But obviously, if he's fit, then he's going to play. And so, yeah, once we kind of saw the 11, I was pretty happy. I felt like it was the best available 11 that we probably had to play against Villa.
And as far as how the game progressed, as I said, it seemed to be a very, no, I won't say nervy, but both teams were very cautious, I think, in the early going. Villa clearly was wanting to be physical. Son was having a lot of trouble. You mentioned, he did start. He was having a lot of trouble with the physicality. I think that McGinn and Cash were on that side, and it just wasn't. We had I think it was something along the lines of 12 touches in the opposition box in the first half and 0 shots on target. So Matt, what were your feelings as were you watching with Villa fans? What was your situation? How did you feel about that first half overall? Not we'll talk about the goal a little later, but just general how the first half went.
I was not watching with Villa fans, but I tend to watch most Tottenham games on my own or with my lad. That's about all I can handle. People around me when Spurs play. But yeah, I just got the impression that Villa sort of like thought weather the storm early on. We'll sit 2 banks of 4, restrict them to long shots, stifle their play. We'll get a chance at some point, and we'll try and nick a lead. And if we can don't worry if they score one because we're still in the game. We'll get a chance. And if we manage to get in front, we'll just sort of like we'll stop them from scoring. And I think that's all they tried to do. They tried to break it up. I was just talking to HG before. I was a little bit not disappointed because I can't, obviously I didn't want to win, but I was a little bit disappointed. I was expecting a little bit more from Villa. I felt they sort of come with the impression, not really as bad as it's but they came to stink the joint out, didn't they? That's how I felt Villa played. That's what they tried to do.
Yeah, HG, what was your view of that first half that was, let's leave the goal aside, but just general play. I mean, we had more than double the passes in their half than we had in our own half. We were playing in their pretty much their final third, but we weren't asking a lot of questions clearly. So what did you think that half was progressing? It seemed a lot like the Palace game the week before, in the sense that we could control play. We weren't giving up a ton of chances, but we weren't creating much. What was your view at that point?
I mean, thankfully, I only saw half the Palace game, but yeah, it felt like that a little bit. Lots of sideways passing. We dominated the ball. We had most of possession. As you said, we were in their half much more than they were in ours. But it felt as if Villa were quite happy for Spurs to play like that too. We've seen a number of times already under Ange that if teams come and make things difficult for us, that we do tend to struggle. And so, yeah, it felt a normal home game for Spurs where we have the ball, we don't really know what to do with it. And the opponent seemed quite happy with that. It wasn't the best watch, even though Spurs had got the ball. You still felt as if nothing was really going to happen for Spurs. We didn't, as you said, we didn't really have a shot. We didn't create much. I think Bentancur had one shot from distance had he been 5 yards further out, it would have found the top corner.
Yeah.
But otherwise, we didn't really threaten at all.
No, they were all shots from outside the box, which I'm fine with because you have to demonstrate you're willing to take them to pull them out a little bit. But we don't have a lot of people who are hitting upper 90s from 25, 30 out. That's just not part of our game, unfortunately. There's not a lot of people who can hit that. I mean, it happens every once in a while, but it's not common. So yeah, I thought my feeling was overall I thought the energy was a little bit better. I mean, the atmosphere was nervy, I think, very, very unsure of how this was going to go, but I felt decent about how the team played, just weren't creating any chances. And so the question was, were they going to make changes at halftime because they're down 1-0? Let's talk about that let's talk about that goal a little bit. It was, to say the least, not a great display by our goalkeeper. But let's talk about the setup first. So we had what seemed to be 4 or 5 people kind of in marking man, maybe 2 or 3 kind of in a zonal. It seems that Benny is to get the front post. And a lot of things went wrong on this goal. First, Benny, heads on goal instead of out of bounds or whatever he's supposed to do when the ball comes in on the near post. He makes Brick work for a save that kind of bodies off him. And we also chose not to mark Rogers, who was trying to interfere with Vicario. And I'm not sure that's a great setup to leave Vicario alone because he just doesn't seem to command his 6. What are your thoughts on the situation with, again, it's only the second piece goal of the season, so that's certainly an improvement, but it was a poor goal to give up. What do you think, Matt?
It is only the second goal we've conceded from a set piece. I mean, we always look a little bit shaky from them, but also I'm not sure if that's how we feel because it's sort of like in our heads that we're really bad from conceding corners, and which we haven't been. I mean, I think maybe just as big an issue is our corners and set pieces. As bad as people think we are at defending them, I think we're just as bad at sort of attacking them. But
yes, we are.
I mean, the ball's flicked off. It's just a bit of a mess, isn't it? Porro's actually flicked it in. They've probably just had a little bit more movement. There's all the faff going on in the box before, which I think is always maybe just a bit of a distraction. Vicario's quite erratic, isn't he, in the situations leading up to corners and stuff like that. A lot of shouting, a lot of pointing. And we just didn't defend it very well. I mean, we haven't, like you said, we've only conceded 2, and you're sort of made to feel that we concede from every set piece, but we don't. It was just a little bit messy. Rogers was unmarked. No fouling going on or anything, was there? It was just badly.
No.
It was just, it was just pretty poor defending. And where was Rogers? A yard out, taps it in.
Yep.
Yeah, about a yard in, taps it in. No one's really on him. Is Brennan Johnson tasked with sort of like trying to help Vicario in those situations?
Brennan was on Pau Torres for some reason. I'm not. There's a lot of things going on with our set piece
Yeah.
taking as well as defending that I still don't understand. And then one of them
Yeah.
is, do you bring a player in to try and push Rodgers, whoever's out, or are you just creating more problems for Vicario to get around and get to the ball? HG, what are your thoughts on tactically how you set up that set piece up if they're going to slam the ball into on the 6?
Do you know, like I'm sitting here thinking, like I have this belief somehow that Spurs are a small side, but we're not. Do you know what I mean? Like Son's 6 foot, Johnson's about 6 foot, Dragusin is obviously over 6 foot, Sarr's over 6 foot. So I'm surprised that it was Porro that ends up being at the front post. Like in my brain, I start thinking, well, you'd want taller guys at the near post. So in case that, because the delivery was good, it was in a difficult
Oh yeah.
area, that you're able to head it away. I wouldn't have thought Porro at the near post would have made much sense. He's probably the smallest player we have. But when he gets the flick on, there's nothing really Bentancur can do. He tries to go and block it. It deflects off him, and Vicario makes the save. But I don't necessarily blame Spurs. It just felt like we could probably have organised things better, because I don't feel like Porro was the front man. I feel like there was someone else in front of him who the ball goes over. And so you have to give, I guess it was Digne that took the corner, but you have to give them credit for getting it in an area where it's difficult to head it away. But I do wonder why Porro was the one who's there. It just doesn't strike me as being particularly smart to have him anywhere near the near post. But it was. I mean, it still surprises me that it's only the second one that we've conceded all season. But at no point do I ever feel confident that we really know what we're doing, despite the fact that we do head a number away. It's just, I guess I want to give the Villa guy the credit for the delivery, and that after that, Vicario can't do much, Bentancur can't do much, and Rodgers is left with a tap in.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm not I'm getting a little. The fact that we've only conceded the 2 is great. I just don't know if we're making too much out of this. Because there's a lot of, you never want to use the online fan as your baseline. That's a terrible idea, but it is what we all see. And so, of course, the discussion of, do we need to go out on the market next summer and get a different goalkeeper? Because eventually, if you're going to challenge for a title, you need to have a goalkeeper who can command the area. I mean, Emi Martinez or Alisson or Ederson, any of those sorts of examples are out there, and they're not easy to find, those goalkeepers, and they're awfully expensive. So you're definitely going to have to go younger and find someone, because it's unlikely that Spurs are going to drop 50, 60 on a goalkeeper. But what are your thoughts? Matt, do we stick with Vic? He's 28. Doesn't seem like he's going to change a lot from his style. What do you think?
We will stick with Vic. We won't be looking for a new goalkeeper, no matter what any of us think. I don't think that's on our radar. Could he do with maybe the goalkeeping coaches sort of helping him a bit more? And can we work? I know we have been working on him a bit more, obviously, but I think that's the only way it'll happen. I don't think we'll be in. Are there better goalkeepers out there? Probably. I think Vicario's an excellent shot stopper. He's an upgrade on Lloris with the ball at his feet. Could he be better? Is there better keepers out there with the ball at their feet? Yeah, probably. But I just don't see it an area that we'll be looking at. So sort of a little bit, but not a pointless conversation. But I can't see it happening. I think we'll just have to try and get better at those situations. I mean, I don't know what you and HG think, whether you think we should, and whether you think we will, because I just don't think we will.
HG, if I put Longa and his team on gardening leave in the summer and hire you, are you going after a goalkeeper, or you got plenty other areas that you want to go shopping in?
Probably other areas. Like I think Vicario's had a relatively bad rap for not too much that he's done wrong. Like obviously there's the odd occasion. I mean, we only have to go back to the Man City game last week where he got caught flapping, and Bissouma was the one who saved us on the line.
Yeah.
So like, I don't think it's wrong to say that he has an issue with crosses, but I also don't think it's as bad as people want to make out, just because we conceded a few at the end of last season. So it feels like it's kind of in his head a little bit, that he's a bit nervy now that when it happens, because at the start of last season, none of us saw it as an issue. So it does make you think that the more we talk about it, the more it feels like an issue. When, as someone said, that the stats don't really say that it is one, but it's still, yeah. Like I don't look at Spurs. We always used to have Kane at the near post heading stuff away, right?
Hmm.
Without that, Solanke's not doing that job, or whoever could be doing it just isn't doing it as well, and so it feels as if it is a weaker area. But I don't
Yeah.
I don't blame Vic for any of this, and I'm certainly not looking to replace him.
I think his sort of antics and the way he comes across makes it look worse. Then it makes it look worse, doesn't he? Because he is flappy. He is all arms and gestures and pointing and sort of like erratic. And I think that always makes it look worse. Because he's just not sort of like, doesn't give you that, like when you look up the other end at the other corners, Martinez is just seems sort of just stand firmer and comes for the ball and takes it, and there's not as much going on around him, is there?
A lot of it just seems to be stature. Like, I don't think Emi Martinez is a better goalkeeper than Vicario, really, but because he looks more the part. But we had this with Lloris. Lloris is not your 6'3" broad shoulder type of keeper, and neither is Vicario. And they just appear smaller than they probably are. But again, I don't see it as a massive problem. It's something that he knows he probably wants to get better at, and we would like him to get a bit better at. But as a lot of the comments have said, I don't blame him for the goal we conceded. And outside of that goal, he didn't have a great deal to do. So it's frustrating, but I don't think it needs to be discussed maybe as much as the media might think.
It's
Well,
an
the save
area
on
that needs
Onana.
improvement. It's an area.
Yeah. Sorry, Matt. Go ahead.
Sorry, I was just saying it's an area of our game, all of them involved, that needs improvement, isn't it? Players, the goalkeeper, we need to improve on that, on how we defend set pieces. But like we said, we have only conceded 2. So,
and I think it sounds like the three of us agree with JP here. I mean, if you think you can find a younger, better goalkeeper for under 30, then great. But otherwise, we have to invest in other areas. Squad, I think, is it would be my feeling too. Yeah, I'm with you guys on that. And this is true too. Yeah, the American pundits, which is primarily Tim Howard, was basically saying that Vicario is more concerned with the player in his box than he is where the delivery of the ball. He gets too focused on the players trying to distract him to the point that he gets overly distracted and stops focusing on the ball. Because what you've got to do is you as soon as you establish position, you shove the person out. When the ball comes in flight, you go aggressively at it and you get to it. And he really did put a lot of the blame on Vicario, but they kind of set him up for that. They're basically trying to get him to dig him out a little bit, I think.
I mean, I feel like there's no way Vicario can come for that ball, because if Pedro Porro's flicking it on, he's in front of his near post when that happens, because it hits Bentancur before going towards the goal. So as much as you might like to think, the ball's been chipped in, there's no real pace on the corner, it's still, at some point the keeper has to rely on the people in front of him who are going to head the ball away. And we could have done that if Porro was 6 foot instead of 5'9". I mean, that's basically the difference. Right. So I get that they want to. I mean, there's lots of things about Spurs that people are saying, and that they want it to fit what they've seen before. But Spurs fans will know that we've seen an improvement. That the numbers are more in our favour when it comes to defending set pieces. But as I said, as a fan, I'm still nervous because I just don't have confidence in us yet. And I guess that if you're a casual fan who only sees Spurs, maybe once or twice a month, or you only caught the highlights and you see that, or you remember those goals that went against us, then you're going to think that. But even though the numbers are more in our favour, I still have that nerves, and I suspect that the team probably do too.
Yeah, I agree with that. And I think the interesting part is, so we go into the half down 1-0. There are a few boos in the stadium. I think they were short, and I think there might have been more irritation with the referee. I think Pawson, put his cards away for the first half, it seemed like, and I wasn't real impressed with his. He didn't cause any huge issues, but I wasn't impressed with his performance in the first half. That's for sure. But that's fine. It is what it is. The question I have is, so Postecoglou said in the post-game press conference that he wasn't worried at halftime. The players were, just itching to get back on the pitch. They were very confident, and he said, He said it's easy to say this in retrospect, but he said I was confident because I knew we could take the game, and we have more gears in us, and we could go up a few gears, something to that effect. So my question is, what's the difference between the Palace game and the Villa game, HG? I mean, is it just we just don't show up as well on the road? I mean, that's true of a lot of teams. Obviously, they win more at home than they do on the road. But is that simply just playing at Selhurst Park versus your home field where you can really get at an opponent with the crowd behind you? Or there's something different in the way I don't know which half you saw the Palace game, so it may be an unfair question, but what are your thoughts on the difference?
I only saw the first half because
well,
I was
okay.
I went to watch Eintracht play at the stadium. But
That was a good decision.
yeah, well, it was fun. It was definitely fun to watch that game. But anyway, I just I feel like again, like if I was going to compare the two first halves, bearing in mind that we were 1-0 down after both of them, right? Against Villa, I felt like we had more of the ball and they were quite happy. And at Palace, they were pressing us. They were making it difficult for us. They didn't really want us to have the ball in those areas. They wanted to try and pressure us into making mistakes, and that's what happened. So I think that's a massive difference. Had Villa tried to press us, and this goes for almost every team that plays Spurs, there are two ways to beat Spurs. One is to give us the ball and just camp on your own 18-yard box and hope for a counter or a set piece. And two, it's to press our defense, because I still don't really I don't trust our inverted fullbacks and our six to kind of be able to turn that pressure around into an attack for Spurs. And Villa probably didn't do either well enough, right? They didn't really press our defense at any point, whereas Palace did. And they didn't really camp on their 18-yard box. They were quite happy for us to have the ball, but they weren't defending in numbers. They still kept, 2 or 3 kind of more than 30 yards away from their goal. So for Spurs to kind of improve away, I mean, we're not going to find many home teams that really give us the time. Like most home teams don't defend deep. They do try and come out, and they've worked out maybe that at home, if they press Spurs high, they might get some reward. I guess we've lost 3 games away, and it was what? Who do we lose to? Newcastle beat us.
Newcastle.
Yeah, Newcastle beat us because they took their chances more than we did. So I don't think that really fits. Palace, by all accounts, probably deservedly beat us because we just would never win the game. And who was the third one? I forget.
Brighton.
Well, yeah, that was in 2 halves anyway, right? So what did Brighton really do differently in that second half?
They executed, really.
Yeah.
I mean, that's what they did. They executed the game plan, and they did in the first half.
And they knew that when you're 2-0 down, you have to try and press and get back into it. And when they got one pretty early in the second half, then their tails were up. So that seems to be the biggest thing with Spurs is not that we play worse away from home, but teams are maybe just logically forcing us to make decisions that we don't like doing, and that we don't have many teams try to do that to us when we play at Spurs.
So we come out in the second half, and fortunately for us, obviously, there was a different pace about the ball. One of the things I was saying in the first half, Matt, was they're not moving it quickly enough. Villa was happy, as you said earlier in this conversation, sit in their 2 banks of 4 with basically 2 guys trying to disrupt the play through the middle a little bit. But we just didn't. When we switched the ball, you just too many times the center back just sits with their foot on top of it. You've got to keep it moving. If you're going to switch it from right to left and left to right, to get in behind that first bank of 4, you've got to move the ball really quickly so that you can get it to Son in that. And on the goal, it wasn't anything really that spectacular, other than realistically a world-class ball from Son. I mean, he had been getting nothing from Cash on that side. He finally got a little bit of space, popped outside on the corner of the box, right, and then whips that ball in. And I don't think anyone could have, if you'd had a precision-guided missile, you couldn't have put it on a better spot. I mean,
No.
And who was there? Who was there at the back post? We had 2 guys. I mean, Solanke missed it. He's a little short. And then Brennan Johnson, who, if there's one thing he does well, it's showing up at the right moment a lot of the times on that back post to get those really easy tap-ins, but it's him being there first place. So here's the thing. I want to have a general conversation with you guys. So none of you, or no one watching and no one on this panel is going to remember that I said I would hold my judgment of Brennan Johnson till November of this year, because I knew it just would take a really long time for the system to get situated, the players to get embedded, and him in particular, clearly showing not someone who's just brimming with natural confidence, was going to take a little bit of time. So now he's got 7 goals this year, I guess, which leads the team. We've got 22 goals scored, which is the most in the league. So Matt, what's our feeling on Brennan? Is where do you see him in at Spurs? How much more of a upper ceiling does he got, or is this pretty much what are your views at this point on Brennan?
I think at the moment he's effective. He's getting in positions to score those goals. But like you're saying, we have to move the ball quick, because Son on the left isn't the player he was at getting the ball, always running and being quick enough to beat his man and take him on as much anymore. So like that goal he scored came from just, he's beat his man and he's gotten in position and he's put a great ball across. And Johnson's on the back post with Solanke there as well. One of them's going to be there to put it in, and he's put it in. I'm not a massive Brennan Johnson fan, so I'm not going to like turn around and say, oh, he's brilliant, because you can't knock him for the goals he's scoring. I think he's working harder than he has. I think the last couple of games towards the end, he's been absolutely dead on his feet, but he's kept working. And credit to him for that. A lot of the time when the ball comes to his feet, obviously the pass is backwards because he doesn't have that sort of like take his man on. Even though he's really pacey, he doesn't have that skill to go one-on-one, be a one-on-one specialist. But he's effective at the minute, and whilst he's doing that, Ange's always going to pick him. And while he's there and the team's performing like it has the past 2 games, and we're sort of playing to his strengths in a way, then fair play to him. Look, I'm not going to change my. I don't particularly rate him. I don't think he's a great player. I just don't. But at the moment, he is effective and he's doing a good job for the team. Manager likes him, and that's sort of my opinion on him. I don't think he's ever going to be a world beater, but I think he's probably more of a player that fits the system and what the manager wants to try and do. So, that's it really. That's always going to be my. I don't see there being a lot more to come from him. I can see him to continue to score goals like he has and get on the end of things, but I don't think within a couple of years he's going to get more confident and the ball's going to come to his feet and he's going to drive at his man and drop his shoulder and cut in and sort of like be a sort of
be
like
Pedro Neto.
Yeah, that's not going to happen with him. So he is what he is, and like me and HG have always said on here, I don't see a different player, than I did at Forest. Brennan Johnson is what I see, what I think he is, and fair play to him for what he's doing at the minute, and I hope it continues, and I hope the sort of form he's showing continues. But yeah, not a lot of difference of opinion from me, mate. But I don't want to seem all negging down on him at the minute, because he's doing okay. He's doing a good job for the team, and last couple of games we've won. So
yeah.
Like I said,
well, I was curious what you were thinking. I'm not going to ask HG his opinion. I know what his opinion is. So I'll give you mine after waiting 15, 16 months to deliver a conclusion. And it's not very exciting. My feeling is that he's an excellent squad player. He is a great super sub bench off the option. He's a great rotation player. And depending on the type of opponent we're going to play, where if we're going to have to sit a little bit deeper and counter a little bit more often, then I want him starting, because that's where we can play balls into space for him, and he's actually really good in that situation. But if we're going to challenge for the league, unless he does develop something like you're saying, where he confidence comes in. He realizes his speed. He learns how to take a man on and get around. We're going to have a better winger against a low block. We're going to have a better winger, against taking men on if we're going to challenge for the title. But I think he could be a 1B to a 1A, a slightly different player, that we might be able to bring on a right wing. And the other thing that I will say that I will have to say that I think he gets credit for, his work rate off the ball in our defensive setups has been very good the last month. I mean, the shift he put in yesterday was fantastic. He and Slanky and Kulusevski, but you always see him work their socks off. If we had the same kind of pressure on the left-hand side, I think we'd have something. But we're not getting the same kind of work rate because Son, has he's got to conserve energy. And then Werner works hard, but he's not as good. Although he did play pretty well against City, he's not your answer there either. And everyone else is just a mystery because they haven't seen him enough. So my feeling is I don't see any reason why this guy can't score 13, 14 goals, chip in with another 5 or 6 assists, starting 20 games or less a year. I mean, I think that would be a really good return. I think the biggest problem is that you got slapped with a $50 million price tag, and everyone expects a $50 million player, £50 million player. And I think while he's not on that big a wage, they did get a big fee for him. So I think that's probably one of the issues that we've got. So that's my feeling, HG. What do you, any thoughts on that?
I mean, obviously I'm more in Gibbo's corner. But I'm trying to think of the goals that he scored so far this season, right? Because everyone's talking about the goals, right? But you're not going to get the assist that Son gave him from Johnson. No. Johnson's never going to produce that kind of cross. So, okay, no. if that's what we're saying is good enough, then fine. But I kind of agree with you that if he's going to stay at Spurs, which he clearly is, then he is your off the bench second choice more than anything else, just because the pony that he is still very one trick. I'm happy that he's scoring, but do we need Van der Ven to beat half of Man United's team for him to score? Do we need Son to produce a moment of magic for him to score? Like, his goal against Brentford was a class finish, and I will give him credit for that all day long. But there's been he's the guy who finishes other people's stuff, and I don't know too many players in the team that I want Spurs to be, right? I don't want Spurs to be fighting for Champions League. I want Spurs to be the type of team that we were 6 or 7 years ago, where we were going for the title, and I don't think he's that kind of player. So do I think we can get better? Probably. Am I happy that we're playing to his strengths? I mean, yes, we're trying to score goals, and he's there to finish them off. But yeah, what can I say? I'm happy that he's scoring, but it's not an indicator of quality. Like, we're talking about, Son's delivery indicates quality, because most players can't do what he did and put a ball on a plate for someone else as they're running in.
Right.
I guess it's what you see as being the value. Like, if you think that having someone who will be on the end of those crosses is something that most teams don't have, then fair enough. Maybe that's true. I don't think that Brennan is a bad finisher. I think if you gave him space, he's more likely to score than not. But I just think that when teams are quite happy to give him space out wide, because they know he won't try and do anything to hurt them, he will just maybe pass it inside to Porro or Kulusevski, which I guess doesn't hurt Spurs either. Do you know what I mean? If he's there to give the ball to someone who's better with it, then that's okay. But yeah, it's tough to look at Johnson and think we've got a world-class player, world-class talent. I'd struggle there too. But Spurs are winning, and he's a massive part of it because of the goals he's scoring. You can't knock that. But yeah, as you said, Jack, squad player, okay. He's homegrown, that obviously helps. I've never cared about the fee. I haven't either. Obviously, that matters for a club like Spurs because we don't have unlimited funds, but he's not in charge of that. I care more about what I see on the pitch, and I just feel like if you're going to compare him to Kulusevski, which we did last season because they were fighting for the same spot, right?
Yep.
Kulusevski, his default mode is he's going to work his butt off to help the team in whatever way he can, and maybe the quality of delivery isn't always there, but you're going to get something. And with Brendan, I still feel like his default mode is, I don't really care. I want to be scoring the goals. I don't want to be doing the defensive work. And if you've seen that as an improvement, then great. because we need help down that side, because Porro wants to go forward. And if we had Kulusevski in the middle and there's no Sarr kind of covering, then you need to have that willingness to track back. And so if he's showing that, then that's great. But I still, like you, I'm not convinced that he will be enough for what we want to become.
Well, let's pivot back to the game then. I think we're all kind of close on that, but let's pivot back to the game. So Son delivers just a magical ball that finished, and now we're 1-1. And not long after that, he is subbed out. And there's been some comments earlier in the show. This one comes from Daniel, asking whether we think Son's a good captain, and that just means what do you think is a good captain? That's one thought, but the other one is from our friend Dave Down Under. I do admit that it did kind of look like Berval and Gray were not sure what was going on when Son was having a bit of a fit. I don't mean he was very vocal, very emotional on the bench after coming out. What were your all thoughts? Let's start with you, Matt. What were you thinking when Son was subbed out at that point in 1-1 game?
Well, in hindsight, I thought we took
No,
the
at the
momentum
moment, what did you think? Not in hindsight.
No, this is what hindsight's different. But at the time, I thought, what a ridiculous decision. Son had actually, Son was taking the game to Villa.
Yeah. He was.
He took the game by the scruff of the neck a bit, and it looked, he was driving us on. And I thought, well, Son's probably our best finisher. If we're going to try and get ahead in this, he's got a good record against Villa, and he's just coming into it. Surely he can last 65, 70 minutes. So at the time, I thought I didn't think it was a great decision. But, and to bring Richarlison on and put him on the left in place of him, I was a bit sort of like, I'm not sure about that. And I was sort of like, we should be keeping Son on. But it worked out all right in the end. But yeah, I mean, I don't mind players coming off and not being happy that they're brought off, especially players like that. He obviously knew he was in a decent moment, so he didn't want to come off. But we have always sort of said sometimes these players need protecting from themselves, and if they thought that's all he had in the tank, and they were thinking that's what we're always going to do, then we're going to change them. Fair enough. But yeah, I thought he had a little bit more left in him, and I thought it was a bad. I mean, most people probably thought when Son went off.
I did.
Nobody. I'd be very surprised if somebody was sat there going, "Thank God, Son's off." You know what I mean?
I mean, the point is, like, taking Son off was always no Spurs fan wants him to go off because we know how important he is. Forget the fact he's captain. Just as an attacking threat, he's one of the few options where we think, okay, like he can actually conjure something out of nothing or score from 25 yards with either foot. We don't have that anywhere else. But I think to see him come off for Richarlison, who we know is not a left winger, who we know just can't deliver. Again, we're talking about the things that Son was doing. Richarlison can't do that. He can't whip a ball in with either foot. That's not his game. And so, had it been Werner, I would have been like, okay, well, we want to keep. We're trying to keep Son fresh. All the things that we ended up thinking anyway. But I mean, I don't love Werner, but he's going to stretch play more than Richarlison does, and so that felt like that would have been a more logical substitution. It wasn't really the fact that Son went off. Because I think every Spurs fan figured that if he's coming off, it must be because he's not fully fit and he can't do more than an hour, etc., etc. But to see Richarlison be the option, I was surprised. Like, because Maddison could have come on, we could have had Maddison come on, put Kulusevski out left, or move Johnson left and put Kulusevski on the right. There seemed to be a couple of choices that might have made more sense than bringing Richarlison on to play in a position that, let's face it, we know he doesn't really want to do.
Matt doesn't have any problem with how he behaved. What do you think, HD? Did you have any issues with the behavior? Did you find it uncaptain-like or anything?
I mean, it wasn't great. I don't think. I mean, it's one of those understandable frustrations. But by showing his frustration at coming off, it does kind of show that he wants to play more than anything else. Which, I mean, is that really a bad thing? Like, it's not. It's tough to sit here and say, look. I mean, like, if I'm Son, I've looked around at my teammates and I think, you know what, I'm the best. I'm the best striker. I'm the best attacker player we've got. I maybe can't do what Solanke does for the team, but when it comes to quality, I have it, and maybe others don't have as much. But when you're on, when the game's being shown live on TV and they do, scream to your face and you're kicking chairs and visibly upset, then that's not a good look either. So
no, it's not. No, I would prefer him to being mad about coming off, but once you get to the bench, I'd prefer you shut up. Personally, that's just me.
Go inside, go to the toilet. Just get your frustration out somewhere else, and then come back and support the team. But yeah.
And Will, just so you know, my MO, you may not have seen me host a lot. My MO is when we have a result like Palace, I try to look at the positives. I try to give our fans something to say. It wasn't as bad as you really think. Yes, it's a terrible result, but it's not as bad as you think. And when we do really well, I also like to not let people think we're world beaters at the same time. So we try to take a balance here. So we're not trying to be negative. It's just we all know what happened in the game. So we always like to take out little specific things that are interesting to talk about. And so that's kind of the way we operate. But I will say this. So let's talk about we end up racking up 3 more goals. So let's talk about that. Because I'll tell you right now, when Romero comes off in a 1-1 game and Son's already on the bench, personally, I'm just hoping but not expecting that we're going to get a draw. I mean, I'll be honest with you. But I will tell you something. If Ben doesn't step up and win that tackle on Watkins, he's away. Yeah. Dragusin is nowhere getting anywhere close to him at that point. He's going around the edge and he's gone. And it's 1-on-1 with Vic, which, quite frankly, Watkins missed a gilt-edged chance early. He had a bad left-footed finish earlier in the game. But this one, Ben steps up, wins the ball. It winds up with a nice quick combination, and obviously Kulusevski sees the space that Dom is running into. He's on sides by 1.5 inches, 3 inches maybe, and then dinks Martinez in what I think is as good a finish. I mean, it's one of those things a little frustrating because if that had been Haaland, if that had been Salah, if that had been the big marquee branding names, we would have seen that goal everywhere. I'm sorry, that was a fantastically well composed finish that he made look so easy, and it's not that easy. It was a brilliant goal, and of course he has the second one on Richarlison. We'll come to Richarlison in a minute, where he's in the right space, taps it in, and if he doesn't, Brennan's going to get it. So they're both nice filling the spots. We have multiple options, which has not been the case for Spurs, and so it's 3-1 in a blink of an eye, and you pretty much think the game's pretty much dusted at that point. But were you, Matt? Were you still? How were you feeling at that point? 3-1 in those 2 goals. How are you feeling, and what was your sense of the rest of the match at that point?
I was really happy. It was a great goal. I mean, talk about the finish was fantastic. I was sort of like, I felt a bit sorry for Solanke earlier in the game. I was saying he doesn't seem. He works so hard. He's such a tireless worker. He's such a team player. He works so hard, and I thought we just can't seem to get him those chances in the box. I know he had that volley before, and he sort of didn't catch it right. But you think, if we could just get more chances to him. And the minute he did, brilliant finish for the first one. I mean, a fantastic finish for the first one. The second one, just like a poacher's goal. But that guy, his work rate and what he does for the team is unbelievable. When after the Man City game, I said, I'll be surprised if he does 90 against Villa. I'm surprised he wasn't lame after that City game, the amount of running and work he did. And the same yesterday, and the goals were a reward for him. He's just he's not Kane. He doesn't drop in and spray the ball round. I mean, he sort of can. He does drop in and gets hold of the ball and brings other players into the game. But just his work rate was fantastic. I mean, in the build up to that goal, where Davis wins it and it goes to Sarr, another guy whose work rate was phenomenal yesterday. I don't see a lot in Sarr what everyone else does, but the last couple of games, I think he's been crucial to how we've won, how we've beaten City and Villa. So hopefully there is a bit more to come from him, and he can keep performing at those levels because his work rate is brilliant. But yes, like 3-1, I thought I sort of felt comfortable. But when they in the 90th minute, when they were getting some like free kicks and corners,
Yeah.
and 10 minutes come up, you think if they nick one in,
Yeah, that's the thing. You knew how
but
much you were going
that's
to get a load of
maybe the
time
old,
extra.
like
Yeah.
maybe that's the old mentality of sort of like, oh God, here we go. I was semi-confident once Madison had put the fourth in with like literally seconds left.
Semi-confident.
On the Spurs fan, mate. But no, 3-1. And I think if you could take your Spurs hat off, we deserved it then. We were sort of like all over them, really. We were by far the better team. And yeah, I mean, I was happy. You know my situation. You know that all my sort of like in-laws are big Villa fans, and most of my friends are Villa fans, and where we live around here is a big Aston Villa supporting community, and they think they are like the best team in Europe, obviously, because they're top of the Champions League group. And I think they were all quietly confident yesterday. And it's always nice when you think, there you go, back in your box, lads. But yeah,
So
I
HG,
mean,
is Solanke good enough for a team that has ideas of challenging?
Yes, based
think
on how
so
we
too.
want to play, I do think so. Like, I think if you're going to have Solanke, Solanke's not going to be a 20 goal a season striker. I don't believe that. He might be, but Spurs don't
That's
create
probably the
those
upper limit.
chances for him. I mean, that's the thing. Like, he could be, but I don't look at Spurs yet, even though we score all these goals. I don't look at Spurs and think we know how to create chances. We don't. Our goals come on transitions. They come on quick passes. They come on we're almost where we don't think so much. So you take the second goal, because I mean our second goal was crucial in the fact that it put us ahead, but it came from a block tackle that Davies won, that then Sarr somehow got through to Kulusevski, who's like one touch through, and suddenly we've scored. And the third goal was very similar. Like we take advantage of their mistake, and then we run through, and it's one simple pass to Richie, who, let's face it, if that had been that's Son trying to score in the far corner. He's not trying to cross the ball like Richie did, but Richie understood that maybe his left foot isn't the best, and so I'm going to try and get the ball across to someone. But those two moments came from like almost the opposite of Ange ball, right? It came from us trying to find a shot quickly, and if we do that, we tend to score a few. If we've got the ball, this is kind of weird. We all thought that Ange would attack all the time, that we'd have the ball all the time, and that we would create chance after chance after chance, and we don't see that. But when we see a team almost get a bit too cocky, then the press comes in, then Solanke's use comes in, and we can attack at speed and score quite quickly. And so you're right. Like, I mean, what you said, Jack, at 1-1, I don't think any of us thought that we were going to finish that game 4-1 with Son off and Romero off, and suddenly our back four has got one player that because Archie Gray came on at the end too, and that was still like 10 to 15 minutes he played with all the injury time. It was like it's fun to watch Spurs because we can score whenever, almost at will when it looks like it, but we give us the ball and we look like we're clueless. We don't really create chances when we have the ball. We create those chances when the other team aren't set yet, if that makes sense.
Yeah, it does. I understand what you mean.
I think that Solanke can certainly lead the line for a side that wins stuff, because Firmino did the same, right? Like, yes. Firmino wasn't a 20 goal a season striker, but when you had the wide players like Mane and Salah, then Liverpool were a real force, and they had goals from midfield, and so his job, he didn't need to be a 20 goal striker.
He would have been if he had played Spurs 10 times a year, but
yeah, there you go. Exactly. So Spurs are a weird one because our stats look really good, because we don't concede too many chances and we seem to have high XG at the end of games. But I don't watch Spurs and think that we're going to score very often, even though we do. And I don't look at Spurs and think that we're going to concede as few as we do, because we look very open at times. So it's a weird one. Like, everything that I think is a good team statistically Spurs are, but when I watch them, the eye test is all over the shop. Like, because we as I said, we don't seem to create chances when we have the ball, but we can score in bunches because we have enough quality from individuals to make that happen. Like to me, the game yesterday was decided by Son's cross and Kulusevski's assist. Everything else was pretty much level, but we managed to create two almost unmissable opportunities, which Villa didn't have that many. They had maybe two, and Rodgers took one, and Watkins missed the other. But outside of that, it was a very even game. And I feel like if we play that game another 10 times, you'd see a 1-1 draw in 8 of them, right?
Yeah, there's not a lot to separate. I mean, we had a debate in our little Patreon group, about whether or not the Villa side was a stronger side when you just looked at the lineups that were announced. And there was a big debate about, whether their midfield is better than ours and, Watkins versus Dominic. And for me, I think it's very even. I mean, if you formed a best 11, you'd probably pick a handful of players from both sides. I think there's not a lot to separate. The styles are slightly different, but similar enough. And I would expect you play Villa, like you're saying, 10 times, and you're probably going to have, a couple wins for each at best. That would be probably way. Although it seems to be we don't draw with Villa at all. One team either spanks the other one. It seems like, but
I mean, the thing is, like, I can only remember like last season and the game yesterday. So, like, obviously we beat them 4-0 at Villa, which on paper, when you look at the result, 4-0 was fantastic. First half, they were all over us. They missed chance after chance after chance. We got the first goal, and then we cruised it. The game last season at White Hart Lane, we were really, really good for half an hour, and then Matty Cash nobbles Bentancur, and suddenly Villa are back in the game, and they get their 2 goals and they go on to win. But again, Spurs missed a few chances. There's not much between the two sides, and so I don't feel like 4-1 represents the difference. I don't feel that 4-0 last season represents the difference. It is very much that I think that Villa could have shown more, and I think Spurs can still improve. Like, as I said, like, we're seventh in the table. The stats are really good, but it's almost, to me, I don't feel like we know what we're doing, which is weird to be winning home games by the scores we're doing, but then the away results kind of indicate that we still don't really know. Like, we've figured one thing out, but we're still trying to work out the other thing that we need to be a certain for the Champions League. And I think that's what Spurs fans obviously would want. But it feels like a weird year. Like, no one thought that Arsenal wouldn't win 5 of their first 10 games, and they haven't. No one thought, Villa wouldn't win. Do you know what I mean? Like, there are lots of teams with 5 wins, and what you do after that is almost what's going to separate it. And so Spurs will have enough firepower to win a bunch of games. It's whether we can turn those games that could be a defeat into a draw, and we haven't really done that this season.
Well, I'm hoping, Matt, that there's been conversations that I've had over the last 12 months pretty consistently with people online. I wouldn't say arguing, but trying to find counterpoints. And probably one of the biggest ones is people, basically, the broad question is, what exactly does Sarr do? And I hope, finally, after the last couple of matches, that people understand what it is that Sarr does. Because for me, he is the one, he like Mickey Van de Ven, does not have a natural replacement in our side. There's no one else with his profile. I'm not saying he should be, up at the Ballon d'Or challenging Rodri. That's not my statement at all. It's just that I think so many people don't understand what he brings. And the number of times that he runs with Rodgers or runs with McGinn or runs with their midfielders and pushes them out of the middle to the side. And again, yesterday, as I think it was widely circulated on social media, that he had one possession 9 times in the game yesterday, which is the most of anyone this season. So I'm hoping that people are starting to understand that the kid, he's up and down like all young players, but this kid is a player who is indispensable to how we want to play, particularly when we know we're going to be in a hard, midfield battle, because they pretty much had 4 and 5 guys playing a midfield against us pretty much the whole game.
Well, I think. Sorry, actually, I was just. I think the reason why that is, Jack, is I think the last 2 games, and maybe I think the last 2 games he has definitely found his form back, and I think a few games leading up to that, he was starting to get there with his games. Like, he scored away in Europe, Ferencváros, and sort of worked his way back in the team and worked his way back into playing well. Because I do think after the initial last season where he came in the team and he was playing and he looked good, I think he had, and obviously he's a young player, but I think he did have a drop off. I don't think he had a very good end to last season. I'm not saying he started this season badly, but now he's the last few, like I said, the last month or so, he's really found his feet. And I think that's why that is, Jack, because I sort of, after the initial period of him becoming a mainstay in the team at the start of last season, I know Spurs weren't great after that, but I did sort of watch and thought, yeah, he's got legs, he gets around, but he doesn't really tackle, doesn't really score goals, doesn't really set up goals. So I wasn't sure what was there. But like I said, the last few games, he's breaking play up. He's getting box to box. He's weighed in with a couple of goals this season. So that's sort of, there's a little bit more to it. There's a little bit more to him than just legs, which is what I sort of saw towards the end of last season. But like I said, it just sort of seems that his form had dropped. And if he can sort of, which is going to be tough because like I said, he's still young, but if he can maintain where he's at now and build on it, you're going to have sky's the limit for him. But yeah, I think that's what it is, Jack. I just think he had a period where he wasn't playing very well, and lots of players can just have legs, can't they? I personally, I like to see a little bit more. And like I can see that with him at the minute. He's driving forward with the ball. He's winning it and driving forward with the ball. He's passing the ball forwards. He's sort of like giving it to players to make things happen.
Yeah, the assist to Son when he wrote in the was that the second goal? I can't remember. Where Son made the young my head's going. I'm sorry. Several step overs. Guy almost fell over and then he buried against Everton.
West Ham. Yeah, the West Ham.
Yeah, West Ham. Not Everton. West Ham, right? I mean, that outlet ball from Sarr that day was brilliant. Went through about three players.
Great goal against Man City. He tried a few shots yesterday.
Brilliant goal, yeah.
Tried a few shots yesterday. They never come off. But if he can add that to his game, obviously he can hit a ball from outside the area as he proved against City. So yeah, I just want to see a little bit. I wanted to see a little bit more than just having legs, mate. And at the moment, he's showing that. And at the moment, I agree with you. I think he's got to play. I think you play him, Kulusevski or Maddison, and Bentancur or Sarr. Bentancur or Bissouma, sorry. But like you said, he's the one that does that role. Nobody else is doing that.
Yeah, I mean, I think if you're going to take the ideal three-man midfield, the way that modern football seems to be, you've got one guy that sits and one guy that creates and one guy that can do a bit of everything, right? And we don't have a midfielder that can really do a bit of everything. Weirdly enough, I think Bentancur is probably that person. But if he's playing as the sixth, then he can't do that. And so Sarr, with the fact he has the legs to get around the pitch that maybe some of the others don't. Maddison doesn't want to be running around in the same way that Sarr's been doing. And it depends on your opponent. Like, obviously, we've won a lot of home games this season. So we can't be too annoyed at the fact that Maddison and Kulusevski have played, and because they've turned games around by doing that. But I think it does depend on the opponent. Like, if we think we can get away with playing two attacking midfielders and two wingers and a striker, then we will go and do that. But in a lot of games, especially away from home, we can't. We're not good enough to really do that right now. So we need someone like Sarr. And as you said, Jack, he's the only one who really has that profile. Like, we might think that Archie Gray could become that. We might think that Bergvall could become that. But again, they're both 18. And so Sarr has, 3-4 years of first-team football experience ahead of those two? It's a significant amount. And so, yeah, like he's part of our best 11. And, but again, like when we play Ipswich, he need to play that one? Maybe not. Maybe with Spurs, it's a bit cocky to think that we don't need to that we can get away with playing more attacking
Well,
players.
but they're going to play differently than other teams do, so that you may not want him in there.
There you go. Exactly. So I don't think Ipswich are going to come and try and sit and defend deep. So yeah, they're not going to offer that threat on the break that maybe Villa you think could or should, considering the players they had playing. So yeah, like Sarr's extremely important, but there are games that we won't need him. And like oddly enough, part of me thinks that I've said this for a long time. I think Sarr's best position might be as the 6.
Yeah, I know. We talked about that. Especially when he played a 2-man midfield, even under Conte, you saw he had that somewhat of that ability to play that holding midfielder place. And I think you're right. I think he could develop that. I think he's got a lot of different directions he could go in terms of his play and have probably the most upside. I think everyone else we kind of know. I'm not talking about Bergvall and Gray. I mean, I'm talking about the established players. I think he's got the most upside at this point. So let me ask you guys this. So we're 10 games in. And if we're going to do a little bit of a flashback to 10 games in last season, completely different vibe among the fans and the club, obviously, completely different position in the table. We were 8-2-0. So what is that? 26 points.
Mm-hmm.
We scored 22, conceded 9. So far this season, we're 5-1-4, 16 points, scored 22, leading the league, conceded 9, 2 fewer. Are those 2 goals worth 10 points over last season, or am I crazy in the sense that we really aren't playing? And this is not a criticism, please. I don't know that we played that badly this season. I think we've been almost as good in our first 10 this season as we were last season. No. It's just we didn't get the Sheffield United extra time 2 goals winner. We didn't get the VAR assisted win against Liverpool, right? We drew with Arsenal, what was probably our best performance of the first 10, quite frankly, maybe. But overall, I'm not sure that we've been that much worse. I mean, I feel we're in a pretty good spot overall, given what we've come through. Now, obviously, we've got the injuries that we're going to deal with, but I think we're even better suited than we were last year because we have more players suited to the style of play than we did 12 months ago. So when we have to make the changes and we have to make the rotations, it's not quite as big a drop off. And of course, everyone's played in the system 12 months longer. So, including Dragerson. And so I think he has showed pretty well, even though not everyone is a fan from what I can tell as I listen to podcasts. So, I mean, what are your thoughts, H.G.? I mean, as far as 10 games in, how do you feel about the season? What do you think going forward?
Well, it's with that. So the 10th game last season was Palace away, right? And
yes.
I went to that game, and
that's right.
I got interviewed by some Sports Joe thing before the game, and they asked me, "Are Spurs ready for a title challenge?" And I laughed in his face, right? Because I knew that we were 10 games unbeaten, but were we as good as the results suggested? No. And this case, maybe we're better than the results suggest because the underlying stats are much better.
Yes,
maybe we didn't take advantage of the chances that we had first half against Leicester, but then Leicester could have come around and won that game at the end. They had a pretty good chance towards the end. So I still, again, Spurs are still a bit inconsistent, but the results haven't been as good. But the performances seem to be better. I feel like we are capable of blowing teams away this year, which we weren't at the start of last season. I don't, we, as you said, we had a lucky win against Liverpool, very lucky. We had a pretty fortunate win against Sheffield United for it to be as late as it was.
Luton away was no picnic.
Yeah. So I just, we had the win at Luton that was, backs to the wall because we were down to 10 for a while. So I just feel that, are we better than this time last season? Yes. I do think we are better as a team. But
that's the big criticism. I hear from so many people that if we go over the last 38 games, we're mid-table at best, and we're not impressed. We're not improving, and I just don't. That's not what my eye test tells me. I think we are getting better, and the tactics are starting to bleed through the team a little bit more.
Yeah, I mean, I would go along with that. It's I think 7th is probably a bit low for where we should be, but I don't think we should be 3rd.
No,
but, I mean, it's weird because Forest are what, 3rd or 4th.
3rd.
And so it is a case of making sure
Nuno, the one that got away.
Yeah, and I feel like we just haven't made sure that we should have got the 3 points against Leicester,
Yep.
and we should have not lost against Brighton, and we
Correct.
should have not lost against Newcastle. And so I'm sitting here frustrated with the team, but also frustrated that we're not higher up, because right now it appears as if there's only really two teams in this. Right, there's only
Agreed.
really Liverpool and City that look like they can sustain a
And
title
even
challenge.
Liverpool, I've watched a lot of their games. They've been fortunate. They have not played
Okay.
great. They look a lot like us, where they're getting results, even though the performances don't really suggest they're playing that well.
Well,
They're not bad. They're not bad.
That's great. I just feel like this year is really open, right? Like, it is really open. I know we're a number of points behind, but the way our home form is, we'll outscore many teams. So we need to make sure that we're more solid away from home, and that we get victories. The only victory away from home was the one at Man United, and that involved a red card that wasn't. So it's tough to look at Spurs and think that there's a solidity there in results, because there isn't. But when it comes to like outperforming our opponents, we've done that most of the season.
Yeah, I think so. Gibbo, what do you think?
Mate, I'm at the point where I enjoyed the victory against Man City. Brilliant. You know, you've got to enjoy those games. The win against Villa yesterday was brilliant.
Time to win stuff.
That's what I want us to win stuff, mate. I'm never going to be happy
Don't
when
care
we're
how.
losing.
Don't care why.
I'll keep my powder dry. I want Ange to succeed. I love how he wants us to play football. I love how he is. I like how he talks and all that. But I genuinely am at the point, and I don't think it would really matter who's in charge. I just think I'm at the point in my supporting life where I'll judge at the end of the season, and I'll go week by week. Palace was awful. The second half against Brighton was awful. But on the flip side of that, the last two games have been fantastic. So, like, we are very inconsistent. The away form needs to improve, and I think that will be the thing that really kicks us off. We've got to sort that out. Then, but and I think we're a really good team at home. But that's just how I see the game. People will want to get really carried away. People say like they think we're much better than we were last season and stuff like that. And I'll only say what I see, and at times I watch us play, and I think we look like a mid-table team, and sometimes I watch us and I think we will beat us. So it's just constantly flip-flopping. So I'm just just take game by game. I think we'll beat Ipswich.
Well, okay. That's my question. So I'm going to end this, and I'm glad you transitioned. Let's end on this concept, because this came up earlier in the conversation in King Huddle. We've got a couple of games to go before the break, which we clearly need some players to get some time off. So what is your feeling, Matt? Do you put a lot of energy into the game against Galatasaray, hoping that whatever we can throw on the field against Ipswich is enough? Or do you prioritize the league game and say, losing in Istanbul is not a big deal. We're still in good position in the cup run in Europe, so let's prioritize Ipswich? Or no, we got to take every game seriously. I'm not asking what the manager's going to do. I'm asking what you feel about as far as prioritizing these next two games.
I hate losing. I hate losing any game. I want to win every game. But at this very minute, like I said, taking it game by game, I look at it. Even if we went to Galatasaray with our first 11, I think it would be extremely difficult. We're not going to be able to do that. What the players have put in the last two games, something's got to give. I don't think we'll be able to go over there and give that. So I think you've got to go over there, and I'm looking at that thinking extremely difficult. I'd say the more important game at this very minute is the Ipswich game, because we've got games that I sort of feel that we can claw back. If we don't get anything out in Galatasaray, we can claw that back. I know we can in the league, but I think the Premier League's the more important one. So I don't want to go over there and throw it. I think we should be putting out as a competitive team as we can. But I think by doing that, we're going to have to rotate, because I think we've had, like I said, I think we've had 2 big games. We've asked a lot of a few players, big players of ours, and they're not going to be able to play. So the Ipswich game has got to be the more important one for me. I think if you can put a team out that can go over to Galatasaray, and if they, I know we don't think, play for a draw. If we can go over there and get a draw, and then come back and beat Ipswich, I think that's the way to go.
HG?
I mean, because we've won our first 3 Europa League games, we've put ourselves in a position where, if we don't win, or if we lose even heavily, it's not going to affect things too much. That's an awful way to look at it, really, but it is the truth. We know that you have to be in the first 24 to make sure you get through to the next round, and Spurs are second. There aren't going to be too many teams that win 5. Like, I will say that, obviously those 3 games that we've won, 2 were at home. The game in Hungary, we weren't massively convincing. But 3 points is all that matters at the end of the day when it comes to this. Like, it's a league table. It doesn't really, away goals aren't going to matter. All those things that used to be a European thing don't exist anymore. Galatasaray away, Gibbo's right. Like, we weren't, like, we would have struggled there anyway. And so I guess we can kind of see it as a bit of a free hit. Like, the young players that will go out there and play, and there will be a number of them. Like, Gray's going to start. I imagine Berger will probably start. And they'll have Bissouma, and they'll have other players out there. Madison will probably play. So they'll have experience out there. But, are we really going to risk Solanke? Do you know?
No, I hope not.
No, like Werner will probably play. So that's a bit of experience. So it's not as if we're going to go out there with a bunch of kids.
No.
But
this is what I think we'll see. I mean, for me, I would put Forster in goal.
Yeah.
I'd have. The center backs. We only have 2.
Yeah.
So, and either Udogie or Porro will start, and the other side will be Gray. Yeah. And then you can run Bissouma, Berval, and Madison as your midfield. Or you could throw Madison up on the left if you wanted to, but I doubt that'll happen.
Yeah.
And then the front line is a little weird, because I really think that Johnson and Solanke need a break. But that means you're throwing, like, what? You put Will Lancashire at striker, and Mikey Moore on the right, and
I think Son will get
Warner
some minutes,
on the left,
won't he?
or his son plays striker because he only played 55 minutes, and I think what we'll see a lot of is guys getting 45 to 55 and then rotating. You could even see Gray going and playing right back and left back, because you want Porro to get some minutes and but not play a full game. So I think we'll see something like that. So I don't think we're going to have an academy team playing in Istanbul. No, but I would say, as far as prioritizing, you want to rest Solanke, you want to rest Johnson, you want to rest Kulusevski. Those guys have been running around the last couple of games, so I would definitely give them a break.
I mean, it's interesting. Like, King Huddle's original comment was about avoiding injuries, and that is it, really. Like, we're with Spence not being eligible for a bunch of competitions and not really being fit. He would be actually a really good option to have, because I think he could play almost anywhere in the back 4. Like, he's played left back already this season. We know he's a right back naturally, but he's got the pace where he could probably survive at centre back. So, I mean, if Emerson Royal does it last season, then Spence could be that person, but probably has more better characteristics to play that role. But we just, we haven't had the chance to put him in the Europa League because he's not in the squad.
And he's not fit right now, and he can't even help us rotating domestically, which is really frustrating.
Go on. So go.
We could have been in a position where you could have gone over there and played Spence right back, Reggie on left back, couldn't you? You wouldn't want like Reggie on playing, but for the sake of the team, you could do that, couldn't you? Then you could have you could have actually give Gray a game in midfield, which is where his natural position's meant to be. Do you know what I mean? You could have.
The Europa League squad was always a tough call, but I do think we made one mistake, because frankly, Forster just would have been the odd man out for me. But now that he's probably going to play, he's only played one game this season, Forster, right? And that was the game at Coventry. I don't think he's played any of the Europa League games so far. So, there's a good chance Vicario will play, but yeah, as King Hoddle said, it's about avoiding injuries, and so
Yeah.
like, could we handle an injury to Kulusevski? Yes, we probably could. Like as much as he's been our best player this season, there are numbers behind him who could play
Yeah.
that role. Can we do that at the back? No.
Not as much.
And that's the issue. So, like, I don't think Porro will start. I think it will be Gray at right back, and left back will probably end up being Udogi. And I don't massively like that, but I suspect that's the way it will go. And Spurs just don't have. Like, if we had a left back in the academy, they would be a perfect position to come in and do that. But we don't really.
Right.
So, like, people like, I mean, Max Robson got named in the Premier League squad because he was, homegrown, and there was a spot available for him. But you'd be surprised that if we went down that road, because it seems as if Ange is happy to play his 22, 23 players, and he'll put them in anywhere he can, rather than call on academy players that aren't called Mikey Moore or Will Lancashire. So
Right.
it's going to be an interesting decision, but I think based on the fact that we won the first 3 games, it is kind of a free hit. And if we lose 3-0, we lose 3-0. And
Yeah,
Ange will come
that's my
out and
feeling.
say that the players needed the experience to understand what it's like. And that's all true, right?
Yeah.
Galatasaray away is
Big
the
game.
type of environment that will really forge you. If you can do that, then we'll be in a much better position going forward. Weirdly enough, I'm happy that we're playing them away and not at home, because those
Yeah, the
kind of
expectation would be
environments,
greater.
yeah, they're not. You don't get that in the Premier League, right? There is nothing like that really. And if we can only play them one place, let's play them in Turkey and see what we can do.
Yeah, I agree. All right. Well, I think we've gone an hour 18. I think that's more than good work for the 3 of us. I think we've done a good job. We haven't made everyone happy with our commentary, but hopefully we've made enough of you happy that you'll want to make sure you hit the subscribe button, hit the like button. It really helps out the channel. We're trying to build something here. So if you like what you see, please become a subscriber and like the channel and come back. I don't know our show schedule. I think we're going Friday. I don't think we're going to do a show after the Galatasaray match. So I think Friday preview and review type of format will be back. So that'll be 9 p.m. UK time. HG, that's 10 o'clock for you in Vienna. So it's late. It's bedtime. It's a school night. So I'm going to let you go. Thank you very much for joining us. It was good to see you again. It's been a long time.
Yeah, cheers. I always had fun. Like, I've been away for a couple of weeks now, but I'm back, and Spurs are the focus of my non-work life. So it was always good.
And Gibbo, I trust you've been wearing your Spurs gear in and around your friends and family in the Midlands this week. Is that going to be the case?
I don't need to, mate. I'm one of those, mate. Like, I don't message anyone. I don't message any of them when we win. It's just sort of like, I'm not even going to dignify you by messaging you or go, oh, anybody watch the football or whatever. I just leave it.
Good job.
And
Good man.
And I can imagine some of them sat there going, I wish he'd just fucking message and say something. When's this mess? And I'm just sort of sat there enjoying my evening thinking, we've won 4-1. That's all I need.
That's all you need.
All I need.
That's right. All right. Well, that's great. Hey, it's been good. Thanks for everyone for joining who came in through, whether it's Facebook or through X or through YouTube. Appreciate you watching, and we'll see you on Friday. Please return for that show. And as ever, we always like to close. Come on, you Spurs.
Cheers, guys. Come on, you Spurs.
Yes.